Hey guys, it's Jill. It's Sunday. It's the last day of June, and I want to talk to you about heroin and Narcan because there seems to be a lot of narratives running around right now. And recently, it's been scaring the snot out of me. Okay, I went a couple weeks ago to like a health fair at our local college, and there was a Narcan table. Now, everywhere I go lately, there's a Narcan table. But on this particular day, a young girl asked me, "Do you want to be trained?" And I said no. And she kind of looked disappointed. And I said, "I believe that it's a choice, and we have first responders for a reason. And since it's on every wall, I'm sure that it's accessible, right?" And she said, "Well, your kids could go to the coffee shop and they could be drugged at the coffee shop. You don't have to be, an active user." I want to be very clear that collective consciousness, what we hold, creates a reality around us. Okay? So if everyone is in fear and chaos, then that is more of what we create. So I informed her of this, and I walked away. A couple weeks later, so this was probably 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I took myself on a little joyride while the kids were at school to Fairhaven. It was a beautiful day. I got in the car. I started driving. I went back out sort of through where I grew up. I took some back roads and just sort of mellowed out on the way up. And I stopped at the pit stop where 38 crosses 104. Now, I grew up in that pit stop. Okay, my aunts used to sling beer and cigarettes out of there and gas while I would sit on the cooler and eat Hershey's root beer float pops. Those are days of my childhood. And I went in the door, and a lot of things have changed. And I know that we're evolving, or so they tell me, but I didn't think evolution would include a nation of heroin addicts. And I don't think that it does. And I think that's another trick, is that we've been duped into thinking that it's really this huge problem. But over like Christmas break, I was talking to a young man who works with the coroner, and I asked him, I said, "In our county, is that really such a big thing?" And he said, "No, Jill, most people are dying of natural causes." Okay, so back to my story. I'm in the pit stop, and I go in the bathroom. And I'm using the restroom, and I look up, and there's a Narcan box on the wall. And on that Narcan box, there's a note, and it says, "Please, if you're going to take one, take both, or I have to throw the other one away." And my heart kind of sank for a minute. And I thought, how many people are coming in and swooping these? So I asked. Of course I asked. And the manager said, "More often than you would think, but they only take one." She said, "And then I have to throw away the other one because I have to keep replacing the box." And I said, "Oh." And she said, "Apparently there is a contract with some agency, I think it might be like associated with HEAL, has a contract with all of the pit stops in Cayuga County that they will stock Narcan in their bathroom and you can just go and get it." And I was kind of mortified. So I asked the next question. I said, "How do you feel about that?" And of course the manager can't tell me, right? It's her job. She's not going to open up on where she stands on that. But the little cashier didn't have a problem saying, "Well, I guess it's good and bad. Because it might save a life, but we're getting a lot of people that we don't normally see. And sometimes it causes problems." Now, I could see that there was this look of discontentment on the cashier's face, which means when I'm here at night by myself and these people show up, it kind of sucks. And that's hard for me. Because you don't want to think about the places that you grew up being riddled with people who are just, looking to get high, and not for nothing, but are we perpetuating these cycles when we're just letting them take the Narcan and praying that maybe they're going to save their buddy's life? I'm not a fan of advocating for people running off a cliff or jumping off a bridge with no water under it. These are not things that we would normally do, so why are we normalizing these behaviors? So I went to Fairhaven, and I went down into town, and I had a fun time, and I brought myself home. And the next day, I decided that I was going to go for a ride. And I went to Weedsport, and I went to Genoa, and I went to Aurelius. I'm trying to think where else did I go, because I hit 8 pit stops. I went to Port Byron. I went to every pit stop. And a lot of the reactions were the same. Now, some places were kind of beating the system a little bit by locking the bathroom door. So now you have to come in and you have to physically ask for it, which is fine. But the fact that we just have shelves of Narcan available to people and vending machines available to people, I understand harm reduction. But what I don't understand is how in an age when we have had opium use for thousands of years, and we've had heroin addiction for, I don't know, it's really been a thing in like the past 20 years. It's really sort of come on the scene here, right? So again, I started doing some research. It is China that is flooding our country, okay, and our own government with heroin, especially laced with fentanyl. It's just what it is. The Taliban in 2022 made $1.4 billion in heroin sales because it is a cash crop. Agriculture is like 80% of their workforce. Now, for some reason, in 2022, the Taliban banned Afghan farmers from growing opium. And that's interesting to me because a couple of years ago, we gave the Taliban back Afghanistan. And we knew how much opium they were producing. I mean, we're talking like 6,000 tons of opium. Okay, that's a lot. And it has been moved since to Myanmar, which is a country, actually Burma in Myanmar, in specific areas, according to the UN. And it sort of outlies China. And now their farmers are producing, and they are a very, very war-torn country. But last year, they outproduced Afghanistan in opium. China is also the biggest producer of fentanyl, which is synthetic opium, right? So it has a similar chemical compound, but it's not actually plant-derived. And a lot of times what we're getting is a mix, and that mix is what is killing people. Now, about 100,000 people die every year from heroin use in the United States. And I'm gonna be an a-hole here, and I'm gonna say this, but are you ready for it? It's a choice to put that in your body, which means this is Darwinism. This is survival of the fittest. Now, I understand that, yes, we're all living in trauma, and yes, we're all living in chaos. But the very first time that you do this, whether you snort it or you put it in your arm, you are making a choice. And one of the scariest things that I hear, especially from young kids, say like 15 to 21, is that the first time they don't push the plunger. It was my uncle. It was my mom. It was my best friend. We need to change legislation around this so that if we can prove that someone else pushed that plunger, whether they died or not, it's either murder or its intent. Because we know that heroin is highly addictive. We know that there is withdrawal even after the very first time you do it. That is why it is called chasing the dragon. Because once you do it once, yes, you will feel euphoric. Yes, it may be amazing. But yes, you will have withdrawal. And no, you will not ever replicate that. Okay? It's like your first kiss or your first time driving. You're never going to get that first time back. Not ever. And that's something that we really need to be telling kids, I think, is the truth, right? That you're not coming back from that. You have now changed the chemical composition of your body. Your brain has now experienced this, and it wants more of it. It's like an adrenaline rush, like going on a roller coaster. And one of the things that we for sure don't tell kids is how when you go through withdrawal, especially if you've been using for a couple of days or a couple of months or a couple of years, okay, is that the DTs, the withdrawal, causes your body to spiral. And you get nausea and vomiting and diarrhea. And sometimes you throw up so hard that you pee on yourself and you drip diarrhea on yourself all at the same time. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? And that actually can kill you. That's more fun. It can kill you. The withdrawal from the heroin can kill you. We have to start making better choices. But I don't think that putting Narcan on every blank space and putting it out there at eye level for our kids is the future that we want to see. We cannot normalize this. You know, if you go back and you look at the temperance movement and you look at prohibition, we know that none of those things work, so let people make their own decisions. But we have to stop throwing it out there like it's just normal. You know, when we've got pictures of crack pipes on posters in schools, we have a problem. It is a problem. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with this. I'd love to have some feedback, so go ahead, leave me some comments, let me know what you think. Understand that it is a decision. Yes, there is help, but again, and I'm going to be the a-hole again, you know, we've got people out there running recovery circles and recovery houses and rehabilitation centers making $500,000 a year running people through. And more than half of those people will come out and they will relapse, and we know that. A few years ago, the director of Unity House looked me right in the eye and said, well, we expect them to relapse the first time out. If we don't believe in them when they come out of these places, of course they're not going to be able to kick the addiction. Of course they're going to relapse. And we're not exactly creating opportunities for them to have something to do. I know a ton of kids right now, and I say kids, but they're like my age and below. Okay, and some of them are a couple of years older. We're all just God's children, so we're all kids. But that are in recovery right now, that are sitting at home with no jobs and nothing to do. And their brain is going, why don't we just get high? Where are we creating opportunities? Where can we create opportunities? If you have a business and you have some things that need to get done, or you could use some volunteers, and you have volunteer opportunities for people in recovery, like, let's make a list of places. Or let's make a list of people who need something to do so that we can call them up and say, hey, would you like to come help out? Because giving people a sense of place in the community and showing them that they have value is so important. And ideally, we need to do that before they go down this road of making that decision, right? The original idea for the Good Vibe House was to have a place where people could come and be, a place where there were volunteers on hand to teach life skills like driving and cooking, a place where we could have volunteer sign-up lists and you could go and volunteer, not just at local food pantries. I've seen people in volunteer positions thrive, and then as soon as it's yanked away from them and they go right back to having nothing to do, guess what? A volunteer opportunity is also a stepping stone to getting back into the swing of having a job and having some responsibility. I know that nothing is perfect, but when I talk to moms of these people in recovery and they say to me they're just sitting at home and they're not doing anything, that's hard for me. And I say, well, where are the programs? And they say, well, Jill, they tell me there are, but there really aren't, okay? Besides sitting in a room. I'm at the park, guys, so I keep pausing because there's like children and there's, motorcycles and four-wheelers. But, okay, when we need something for people to be doing. We need a space where people can just be that's not sitting in their home or sitting in a hotel room. I didn't plan for this to spiral into like, we really need this, but I don't know. It was given to me as a vision in like 2018. And I asked for help and I asked for help. And I'm just cyclically for the past 5 or 6 years watched the atrocities that have come down. And now we have Narcan boxes everywhere. And we have more women dying in childbirth. And we have, our young kids at 11 and 12 years old playing me videos from Grand Theft Auto about the N-word and sucking dick. And my brain just doesn't understand. Like, we really took a hard left in society. And it needs to calm down, but I think a lot of it is false narratives too. We believe that these kids can just do whatever they want, and they were kind of programmed that way when they got 2 years out of school for the COVID nonsense, right? Because they were left to their own devices, so now they're just off the rails. And the Narcan thing is it's a money cycle, just like the rehab cycles. And I hate to be like that, but it's honest. Like, take a deeper look. Research any of these topics. Hang out with some kids, especially late elementary kids, because it is mind-boggling, the behaviors. Some of the things that I have heard, some of the dancing I've seen, and people are going, well, Jill, how do you know these things? Because I hang out with these kids. Because I've been in the schools with these kids. I've been in the after-school programs with these kids. And very recently, I don't understand where we're going. But I'm tired of feeling like a crazy person every time I say that this is not okay. Not okay. But anyways, I've had you for almost 20 minutes again. It's been a long road, you guys. Let me know if you have thoughts on my feelings, my observations. Alright, I'll talk to you guys later.